This is Frank Kutzakria giving you 5 minutes of my predictions on some upcoming races. I'm going to touch on this video with gubernatorial races and some other non-Senate, non-House composition votes. I may pull up a House race in there that I think would be a bellwether, but mostly this is going to talk about Gooby races outside the state of Florida. We're going to do that in our own video. So like and subscribe, and I'm not going to do every election, so don't worry. I think Alabama's going to stay red. I think California's going to stay blue, but I'm going to give you some races that I think are going to be some close calls and some possible flips. So in Alaska, it's the best chance for Republicans to pick up. This is actually the only governor's mansion that is controlled by neither of the two parties, and it's Bill Walker. Bill Walker actually quit the race after voting began and endorsed his Democratic opponent. It looked like Mike Denheavy was on his way to an easy victory. I still think the Republicans do win this seat. Alaska is notoriously bad at polling, but they should put a W in the win column with about a 55-45 split. Doug Ducey, I think, has done enough to win re-election in Arizona. Now, Colorado is an open seat. John Hickenlooper, the Democrat, is term limited. And Paulus and Stapleton are the two major candidates. I believe Paulus will win for the Democrats with about 49 to 47. There are three other nonpartisan or third-party candidates that I think will keep Paulus right about the 50 level. I'm not sure if he will pass it or not. In Connecticut, Ned Lamont, who famously lost to Joe Lieberman in 2006 in the Senate, is running against Bob Stefanowski. And I'm not a fan of either of these candidates, but I think Lamont will win. Though there are two minor candidates who could keep the totals under 50. Now in Georgia, Brian Kemp is the Republican. It's going to be a close race. Stacey Abrams is the Democrat, trying to become the first African-American female elected governor. I think Jack Kemp wins. It's going to be Brian Kemp wins, and he does clear the 50. Now in that state, you do have to get 50 plus 1. I think Kemp will clear it, and will not have to go to a runoff. Hawaii, I'm only bringing up because I think there's a good chance that the Republicans could end up in third. It's a real dumpster fire for the party out there, and there is a small chance that the Republican could end up in third in our 50th state. Now in Iowa to me looks like the best chance for Democrats to flip by a big margin. I think that the Republican has done a great job, but again, I think there's a great chance that it's going to get flipped, and it's going to get flipped to Fred Hebel. Now, Kansas is sort of one of those weird states where you're like, seriously, what happened? The Republican incumbent lost the nomination, and the replacement is one of those where you kind of scratch your head with. I think he's going to win because this is still Kansas, but it may be a lot longer on election night. And if it's like 12 o'clock in the East, which would be 11 in Kansas, and they have not called the race yet, you know that that's a good sign for a blue wave, especially in the House races that are going to be in Kansas. Maine will flip to the Democrats. It is term limited by Paul LePage, and it couldn't come at a faster time for Republicans. It could affect the 2nd congressional district. That's the congressional district. Maine does it by, in the presidential election, votes statewide and by congressional districts. And that's the one where Donald Trump won. I believe that the Democrats will win that House seat, and they will win the governor's mansion. In Massachusetts, a Republican will be reelected for the first time in a while. Oddly enough, even though as blue as Massachusetts is, Republicans have pretty much won the governor's mansion for most of my lifetime, which doesn't seem like it makes much sense, but yeah, it's the bluest state, but hey, you don't always choose the most red of Republicans, and hey, they might have a shot. Michigan flips Democrat. Minnesota, the only thing that could keep the Democrats from retaining this seat is their attorney general candidate. That is Ellison. He allegedly beat the shit out of his girlfriend, and he is just now barely losing in polling against the Republican. Minnesota is widely known as the one state that voted Democrat in Ronald Reagan's reelection. Is it enough to bring down the Democratic ticket? Probably not. But Minnesota is one of those states where if they don't call it within the first hour, that's bad for Ellison, because that's probably, they might get some national news. He was a pretty prominent figure in the Democrats nationwide. But it may actually not be that bad for the occasional U.S. House race for that state if it takes a while to call the race. In Nevada, I personally believe that the Republican has done enough to win that seat. And Lexatol, Adam Lexalto, we'll just call him Adam. Looks like he's going to win in that state. New Hampshire, Sununu will win re-election. In New York, Cuomo will come in first, and I only bring up New York because obviously New York will win by Democrat, but it is the order of the party representation that matters most. Cuomo as a Democrat will come in first. The Republicans will come in second. I believe the second party from Cuomo, which will put him in the third spot. The Conservatives will come in fourth, and then the Workers' Party will come in fifth. I believe she's still on the ballot. And Cuomo got the nomination of both Democrats and the Independence Party, which in New York, Independence is not independent. That matters for ballot selection. Whoever office of governor comes in first, goes first. It's famously when his dad lost the election, Democrats still technically had the most votes for that office, and the Republicans came in second, with conservative in third, even though they had the same nominee, which was Pataki. So that matters for down ballot stuff. In Ohio, this is the bellwether of how badly Republicans will do. Mike DeWine has been in office forever in 1,000 different positions. He's running against Richard Codroy for John Kasich's term-limited seat. If Democrats win this seat, it's one, it ends John Kasich's chance to run for president against Donald Trump, unless he wants to go third party and lose, or cross as a Democrat and lose, and would be bad for Republicans overall. So I imagine that Codroy wins the seat for the Democrats, and it is a bad night for Midwest Republicans. Vermont stays Republican, which always seems to be a shocker that I say that Vermont is a Republican state. It really is, other than for the old man, the creaky old man who ran as a Democrat when he wants to, but is a bona fide socialist. Scott Walker, I think if you are Scott Walker, you're looking at the results in Ohio to figure out how badly you're going to do. I think he will win his fourth election for his third term, if you count the recall as a term. And I do think he does pull it out, even though it will be much closer than it should be. And then last but not least, of the areas that are up for contention, South Dakota. Dennis DeHagard is term limited, and Kristi Noem is the Republican against Billy Sutton, the Democrat. I think it's going to be really close. It's hard again to cover those upper flyover states in polling, but I think that Noem will get about 53 to 47% of the vote. So like and subscribe. Later on, I will do a Senate and full House breakdown on, again, excluding Florida, and then Florida on a later video. So like and subscribe, and we'll talk later.